Arizona, 1952. The thunder rolled across the Sonoran Desert like God's own bowling ball, shaking the weathered frame of Sam Morrison's ranch house. At 43, Sam had grown accustomed to the desert's violent summer storms, but this one felt different, angrier, more desperate. Lightning split the purple-black sky as he stood on his porch, watching the wall of rain approach his cattle ranch 15 miles outside Tucson. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of creosote and wet earth, that distinctive smell of the desert, drinking deeply after months of thirst. Sam's weathered hands gripped the porch railing as he surveyed his land. 2,000 acres of stubborn earth that had been in his family for 3 generations. His grandfather had built this place with Apache labor, back when the territories were still wild. Now, in the early 1950s, the world was changing faster than tumbleweeds in a dust devil. That's when he saw her. A figure emerged from the curtain of rain, running with the fluid grace of someone born to this harsh landscape. Even through the downpour, Sam could see she was young, maybe 17 or 18, with long black hair plastered to her head by the storm. Her simple cotton dress clung to her slight frame as she ran barefoot across the desert floor, seemingly unbothered by the thorns and rocks that would tear apart a city dweller's feet. She was Apache. Sam knew this, not from any stereotypical observation, but from the way she moved, like she belonged to this land, in a way that even his family, after 3 generations, never quite had. There was something in her stride that spoke of ancient knowledge, of a people who had called this desert home for centuries, before the first European had ever set foot in Arizona. The girl stumbled, catching herself on a barrel cactus. Sam saw her wince, saw the thin line of blood where a spine had caught her arm. Without thinking, he stepped off the porch into the storm. "Hey!" he called, his voice nearly swallowed by the thunder. "Hey, over here!" She looked up, and for a moment, their eyes met across the rain-soaked distance. Hers were dark as obsidian, wide with something Sam couldn't quite name. Fear, perhaps, but not of the storm. Fear of something else entirely. She hesitated, poised like a deer ready to bolt. Sam raised his hands, showing he meant no harm, and pointed toward his house. The girl glanced back the way she'd come, then at the sky where lightning was dancing with increasing frequency. Finally, she nodded once and ran toward him. Up close, Sam could see she was even younger than he'd first thought, maybe 16 at most. Her face bore the high cheekbones and strong features of her people, but there was something haunted in her expression, something that made Sam's protective instincts flare to life. Her dress was torn in several places, and there were bruises on her arms that clearly hadn't come from her run through the desert. "Come on," he said, his voice gentle but urgent. "Let's get you inside before this gets worse." She followed him onto the porch, leaving wet footprints on the weathered boards. Sam held the screen door open, and she stepped into his kitchen, a simple room with a wood-burning stove, a scrubbed pine table, and windows that looked out over the endless expanse of desert. The girl stood dripping on his floor, her arms wrapped around herself, dark eyes darting around the room like she was memorizing every exit. "You're hurt," Sam said, noticing the blood on her arm. He moved slowly, deliberately, to a cabinet where he kept medical supplies. "Let me clean that up for you." She watched him with the wariness of a wild animal, but when he approached with a clean cloth and a bottle of iodine, she held out her arm. Her skin was warm despite the rain, and Sam noticed her hands were calloused from hard work, not the soft hands of a girl who'd lived an easy life. "What's your name?" he asked as he cleaned the wound. She was quiet for so long that Sam thought she might not speak English. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, "Aiyana." Sam paused in his ministrations. He'd heard that name before, from the old Apache ranch hands who'd worked for his grandfather. It meant eternal blossom, in their language, a beautiful name for a girl who looked like she'd been running from something terrible. "I'm Sam," he said, finishing with the bandage. "Sam Morrison. This is my ranch." She nodded, then looked toward the window where the storm was reaching its peak. "Thank you," she said, her English accented but clear. "For the shelter. You planning to head back out in this?" Sam asked, though he already knew the answer from the way she held her, ready to run at the first sign of trouble. "When it passes," she said simply. Sam studied her face, noting the way her jaw was set with determination, but her eyes held a deep tiredness that no teenager should carry. "Where you running to?" The question hung in the air between them like smoke. Outside, the storm reached its crescendo, and Sam watched as something shifted in the girl's expression, crack in her armor that let him see the scared child beneath. "Away," she said finally. "Just ... away." Are you enjoying this story of unexpected connection in the harsh Arizona desert? Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. This tale of Sam and Aiyana is just getting started, and you won't want to miss what happens next. The weight of words, the storm passed as desert storms do certainly, leaving behind the clean scent of rain and the sound of water dripping from the eaves. Sam made coffee, while Aiyana sat at his kitchen table, her wet dress beginning to steam in the warm air. She hadn't spoken since telling him her name, but her eyes never stopped moving, cataloging every detail of his simple home. Sam poured 2 cups of coffee and set one in front of her. She wrapped her hands around the ceramic mug, as if drawing warmth from it, though the evening was still humid from the storm. "You got family around here?" Sam asked, settling into the chair across from her. Aiyana's fingers tightened on the mug. Had family. The way she said it, past tense, final as a gravestone, made Sam's chest tighten. He'd lost his own parents young, knew the particular weight of that word. "I'm sorry," he said simply. She nodded, then looked toward the window, where the last of the storm clouds were clearing, revealing the first stars of evening. "My grandmother raised me. She died 2 months ago. Pneumonia." Sam waited, sensing there was more to the story. In his experience, people ran from living problems, not dead ones. "The Bureau of Indian Affairs," Aiyana continued, her voice growing, smaller. "They want to send me to a boarding school in Oklahoma. Say I need to be ... civilized." She spoke the word like it tasted bitter. Sam's jaw tightened. He'd heard stories about those schools, places where Indian children were stripped of their language, their culture, their very identity. Civilized, they called it, as if centuries of Apache wisdom were somehow primitive. "My grandmother," she spoke the old language, "taught me the stories, the songs. She said I was the last one in our family who would remember." Aiyana's voice cracked slightly. "At the school, they cut your hair, make you speak only English, beat you if you're caught practicing the old ways. So you ran," Sam said, understanding now why she'd been fleeing through the storm. "3rd time." There was a flash of defiance in her dark eyes. "They always catch me before, but this time ... She trailed off, looking down at her hands. "This time, I won't go back." Sam studied her face in the lamplight. At 16, she was talking about a life on the run, about choosing exile over surrender. It was the kind of choice that would have broken a lesser person, but there was steel in this girl, the same steel that had helped her people survive in this desert for generations. "Where will you go?" he asked. "Mexico, maybe. I have distant relatives there. Or just appear into the desert." She shrugged, but Sam could see the uncertainty beneath her brave words. "My grandmother always said the desert provides for those who know how to listen to it." Outside, a coyote howled in the distance, and Sam heard Aiyana's breath catch. Not fear, recognition. Like she was hearing a familiar voice calling her name. "That's a long walk to Mexico," Sam said carefully. "Especially for someone traveling alone." "I know this land," Aiyana replied. "Better than those government men who chase me. They look at maps. I know where the hidden springs are, where the game trails run. My grandmother taught me." Sam leaned back in his chair, his mind working. He'd lived alone on this ranch for 5 years, ever since his wife died in childbirth along with their son. 5 years of talking to cattle and horses, of eating dinner by himself, of watching the sun set over empty land. The silence had become a weight he carried, pressing down on him like the desert heat. "You know," he said slowly, "I've been thinking about hiring some help around here. Someone who knows the land, understands the animals. Someone who could help with the daily work." Aiyana's eyes sharpened. "You're offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a place to stay, to think, to decide what you want to do next." Sam met her gaze steadily. "The government men, they're looking for a runaway Indian girl. They're not looking for a ranch hand." For the first time since she'd arrived, Aiyana smiled, a small, cautious thing, but real. "You would do that? For someone you just met?" Sam thought about his answer. There was something about this girl, her quiet strength, her fierce loyalty to her grandmother's memory, her willingness to risk everything rather than lose who she was. It reminded him of the woman he'd married, the woman who'd brought laughter and warmth to this old house before consumption took her. "My grandfather always said, this land belonged to your people long before it belonged to mine," Sam said. "Maybe it's time I returned the favor." Aiyana was quiet for a long moment, studying his face as if trying to read his true intentions. Finally, she nodded once. "I would like that. But I won't hide who I am, even if it means trouble." "I wouldn't ask you to," Sam replied. This desert's got room for all kinds of people. Always has. As if summoned by his words, they heard the sound of vehicles approaching, the low rumble of truck engines cutting through the evening quiet. Sam felt Aiyana tense beside him, her body coiling like a spring, expecting company. She asked, her voice carefully neutral. Sam shook his head, already moving toward the window. In the distance, he could see headlights bumping across the desert road that led to his ranch. 2 vehicles, maybe 3. His stomach dropped as he realized who it might be. Bureau men, Aiyana asked, reading his expression. Could be, or local law enforcement. Sam turned to face her, his voice urgent but calm. There's a root cellar behind the house. Hidden door in the floor. My grandmother used it during Apache raids. Back in the day, figured it was only fair to return the favor. But Aiyana was already shaking her head. I'm tired of running. Tired of hiding who I am. This isn't about hiding, Sam said firmly. This is about choosing your battles. You want to fight them. Fine. But let's fight them when you're ready. Not when they catch you off guard. The headlights were closer now, and Sam could hear the vehicles slowing as they approached his property. Aiyana looked toward the door, then back at Sam, and he could see the war playing out in her dark eyes, the desire to stand and fight warring with the wisdom of strategic retreat. The cellar, she said finally. But only for tonight. Tomorrow, we face whatever comes. Sam nodded, already moving toward the trapdoor, hidden beneath a braided rug in the corner of the kitchen. As he lifted the heavy wooden panel, revealing the dark space below, he heard the vehicles pull to a stop outside his house. Whatever happens, he said as Aiyana descended into the hiding place, remember, you're not alone in this anymore. The last thing he saw before closing the trapdoor was her eyes, bright with something that might have been hope. Then came the knock at his door. The art of silence. Sam smoothed the rug over the trapdoor with practiced ease, then moved to answer the persistent knocking. Through the window, he could see 3 men on his porch, 2 in government suits despite the desert heat, and 1 in a sheriff's uniform. The federal agents looked like they'd stepped out of a Washington office, pale, uncomfortable in the desert climate, their city shoes already dusty from the short walk from their car. Evening, gentlemen, Sam said, opening the door just wide enough to frame his body. Bit late for a social call, isn't it? The older of the 2 federal agents, a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses and the demeanor of a disappointed schoolteacher, stepped forward. Mr. Morrison, I'm Agent Caldwell with the Bureau of Indian Affairs. This is Agent Martinez, and I believe you know Sheriff Hawkins. Sam nodded to the sheriff, a weathered man named Bill, who'd been a friend of his father's. Bill, what brings you out here in this heat? We're looking for a runaway, Agent Caldwell said, consulting a small notebook. Apache girl, about 16 years old, goes by the name Aiyana Begay. She was supposed to report to the Riverside Indian School in Oklahoma 3 days ago. Haven't seen any Apache girls, Sam said truthfully. Below his feet, he could feel the weight of Aiyana's presence, her forced stillness like a held breath. Agent Martinez, younger and more aggressive than his partner, pushed forward. You mind if we take a look around? We have reason to believe she might be in this area. You have a warrant? Sam asked mildly. The agents exchanged glances. We're not here to arrest anyone, Mr. Morrison, Agent Caldwell said. We're here to help a misguided young woman return to her proper place. For her own good. Sam felt his jaw tighten at the condescension in the man's voice. And what exactly is her proper place? The Riverside School provides education, structure, and opportunity for Indian children, Agent Martinez said, reciting what sounded like a rehearsed speech. 3 square meals a day, vocational training, and most importantly, instruction in how to integrate into American society. She is American, Sam said quietly. Been here a lot longer than most of us. Sheriff Hawkins cleared his throat uncomfortably. Sam, if you've seen this girl, you need to tell us. Harboring a runaway is a serious matter. I'm not harboring anyone, Bill. Sam looked his old friend in the eye. Just a man trying to enjoy a quiet evening on his own land. Agent Caldwell consulted his notebook again. According to our records, your family has employed Apache workers in the past. It's possible she might think she could find sympathy here. My grandfather paid fair wages to Apache cowboys, Sam said, some of the best horsemen I ever knew. If that's sympathy, then I suppose I'm guilty of it. The younger agent's face flushed with irritation. Mr. Morrison, this girl is the ward of the federal government. Her grandmother is deceased. She has no other family. And she's been assigned to an institution that will provide for her needs and prepare her for productive citizenship. Productive citizenship, Sam repeated. That what you call it when you strip away someone's language and culture? We're trying to help her, Agent Martinez snapped. Left to her own devices, she end up like the rest of them, drunk, dependent, living on government handouts. The casual racism in the man's voice made Sam's hands clench into fists. Below his feet, he could almost feel Aiyana's rage. The way she must be biting her tongue to keep from crying out. Sheriff Hawkins stepped between them. Now, let's keep this civil, Sam. I know you're a good man, but if you're hiding this girl, you're not doing her any favors. These boarding schools, they're not as bad as people make them out to be. Sam looked at his old friend with something close to disappointment. Bill, you got kids. You know I do. How would you feel if someone came and took them away, told you they were going to cut their hair, forbid them from speaking English, beat them if they mentioned their family or their home? That's different, Sam. That's white. Sam finished. Yeah, I suppose it is. Agent Caldwell stepped forward, his patience clearly wearing thin. Mr. Morrison, I'm going to ask you one more time. Have you seen this girl? Sam was quiet for a long moment, thinking about the weight of the question. Below his feet, Aiyana waited in the darkness, trusting him to make the right choice. Around them, the desert stretched endlessly, holding its own secrets, its own stories of survival and resistance. I've seen a lot of girls, Sam said finally. Mexican girls picking cotton, white girls from town, Apache girls at the trading post. This desert's full of girls. Agent Caldwell, have to be more specific. The federal agent's mouth tightened. We have reports she was seen in this area during the storm earlier tonight. Storm brings out all kinds of creatures, Sam said. Coyotes, javelinas, rattlesnakes. Girl would have to be pretty desperate to be out in weather like that. Agent Martinez took a step closer. You're playing games with us, Morrison. I'm standing on my own porch, talking to uninvited guests who showed up after dark, Sam replied evenly. If that's a game, then I reckon I'm winning. Sheriff Hawkins sighed. Sam, if she shows up here, you call me. Don't try to handle this yourself. I'll handle whatever needs handling on my land, Bill. Same as always. Agent Caldwell closed his notebook with a sharp snap. We'll be back, Mr. Morrison. And when we find her hand, we will find her. Anyone who helped her will face federal charges. I'll be sure to remember that, Sam said. You gentlemen have a safe drive back to town. Road can be treacherous in the dark. The agents walked back to their vehicles, their body language radiating frustration. Sheriff Hawkins lingered for a moment. Sam, I'm serious. Don't get yourself in trouble over this. These federal boys, they got long memories and short tempers. Thanks for the warning, Bill. After the vehicles disappeared into the desert night, Sam waited a full 10 minutes before lifting the trapdoor. Aiyana emerged from the root cellar, like a ghost, her eyes bright with unshed tears and barely contained fury. You heard all that, Sam said. It wasn't a question. Every word. Her voice was tight with emotion. The way they talked about my people, about me, like I'm some kind of broken thing that needs fixing. Sam poured her a glass of water, noting the way her hands trembled slightly as she accepted it. They'll be back. Probably with more men. Maybe a real warrant next time. I should leave, Aiyana said. I won't let them arrest you because of me. You're not going anywhere, Sam said, firmly. At least not until we figure out a better plan than you wandering around the desert alone. She looked at him with something like wonder. Why are you doing this? You could get in real trouble. Sam thought about his answer, about the empty years since his wife died, about the silence that had become his only companion. My Mary, she always said this house felt too big for just one person. Said it was meant for family, for people who belonged together. I'm not your family, Aiyana said softly. Maybe not by blood, Sam replied. But family's not always about blood. Sometimes it's about choice. About choosing to stand with someone when the world's against them. For the first time since the agents had arrived, Aiyana smiled a real smile that transformed her entire face. My grandmother used to say that the desert teaches you who you really are. She said some people learn they're weak, and some learn they're strong. But the luckiest ones learn they're not alone. Smart woman. Your grandmother, she was. Aiyana looked around the kitchen, at the simple furniture, and the windows that looked out over the endless desert. She would have liked you, I think. Would have said you have good medicine. Good medicine, it means. A good spirit, a heart that helps instead of harms. She paused, then added quietly, she always said the desert would provide for me. I think maybe she was right. Outside, a coyote howled again, And this time Sam heard it differently, not as a lonely sound, but as a call to others of its kind. A reminder that even in the vast emptiness of the desert, no one had to be truly alone. "Come on," he said. "Let's get you properly settled. Tomorrow, we'll start figuring out how to make this work. But tonight, you're safe." As they prepared for sleep, Sam giving Aiyana his bed while he took the couch, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years. The warmth of purpose. Of having someone to protect and care for. The silence that had once pressed down on him like a weight now felt different. Fuller somehow. In the darkness, he could hear Aiyana's steady breathing. And for the first time in a long time, Sam Morrison was not alone, where silence lived. Months later, the autumn sun painted the desert in shades of amber and gold. Sam stood in his kitchen doorway, watching Aiyana work with the horses in the corral. She moved among them like water, her presence calming even the most skittish mare. In the past weeks, she'd proven herself invaluable not just as a ranch hand, but as someone who understood the desert's rhythms in ways that generations of Morrison men never had. She'd shown him where the hidden springs were, taught him to read the signs that predicted flash floods, helped him locate 3 head of cattle that had wandered into a box canyon during a dust storm. More than that, she'd brought life back to the ranch. The silence that had once felt oppressive now felt peaceful, not empty, but full of unspoken understanding. "The sorrel mare is favoring her left front hoof," Aiyana called out, her voice carrying easily across the yard. "I think she picked up a stone." Sam nodded, pulling on his work gloves. These daily exchanges had become routine, but they never failed to remind him how much his life had changed. Where once he'd worked alone, now he had a partner who anticipated his needs, who saw things he missed, who made the hard work feel less like a burden. As he approached the corral, he noticed something that made his stomach tighten. A dust cloud, on the horizon, moving toward the ranch. Too big to be a single vehicle, too purposeful to be casual traffic. "Aiyana," he said quietly. She looked up from the mare's hoof, following his gaze. Her face went carefully neutral, but Sam could see the tension in her shoulders. "How many? Can't tell yet. But it's not just one car." They'd developed a system over the past months. 3 times, federal agents had returned to the ranch, each visit more aggressive than the last. Each time, Aiyana had vanished into the desert, like smoke, moving through secret paths her grandmother had taught her, returning only when the coast was clear. But this felt different, bigger. "There's something else," Sam said, his voice heavy. "Got a letter from my lawyer yesterday. The Bureau's been asking questions about my employment practices. They're looking for legal ways to force me to cooperate." Aiyana's hands stilled on the mare's hoof. "They want to take the ranch. They want to make it too expensive for me to keep you here. Threaten my cattle permits, my water rights, anything they can use as leverage." She was quiet for a long moment, her dark eyes fixed on the approaching dust cloud. "Maybe it's time." "Time for what?" "For me to disappear. Really disappear. Mexico, like I planned before." Sam felt something cold settle in his chest. "That what you want?" "What I want." Aiyana straightened, brushing dust from her hands. "What I want is to stay here. To keep learning from you. To keep working this land. To have a place where I can be myself without fear." "Then that's what we'll do." She looked at him with a mixture of affection and exasperation. "Sam, you can't fight the federal government. They have power, money, time. All you have is stubbornness and good intentions. And you," Sam said simply. "I have you. And you have me. That's got to count for something." The dust cloud was closer now, and Sam could make out individual vehicles, 4 of them, including a van that looked like it could hold several people. His jaw tightened. This wasn't just another routine search. "They're bringing more men this time," Aiyana observed. "They mean to search every inch of this place. Then we'll give them something to search for." Before she could ask what he meant, Sam was striding toward the house. He emerged moments later with a canvas bag and a shovel, his face set with determination. "What are you doing?" Aiyana asked. "Creating a story," Sam replied, beginning to dig a hole near the chicken coop. "Sometimes the best way to hide something is to make people think they've found it." Understanding dawned in her eyes. "You're going to let them find evidence that I was here. Old evidence. Evidence that suggests you moved on weeks ago." Sam pulled items from the bag, a torn piece of fabric, a broken hair ribbon, a small beaded bracelet. "I've been collecting these for months, waiting for the right moment." Aiyana fingered the bracelet, her expression soft. "That was my grandmother's. I know. That's why it'll be convincing." The vehicles were close enough now that Sam could hear their engines. He quickly buried the items at different depths, scattered around the ranch in places that would be discovered with thorough searching, but wouldn't be immediately obvious. "Now," he said, taking Aiyana's hands in his, "you know where to go." She nodded toward the desert. "The old Apache camp, up in the rocks. I can watch from there, see if they leave men behind. And if they do, then I keep moving. There are places in the desert where no white man can follow." Her voice was steady, but Sam could see the fear in her eyes. Not fear of the desert, but fear of losing this place that had become home. "Aiyana," he squeezed her hands. "Whatever happens, this isn't goodbye. You understand me? This is just ... strategy." She nodded, but didn't speak. Instead, she rose on her tiptoes and kissed his cheek, a gesture so unexpected and tender that Sam felt his throat close. "You gave me what my grandmother promised," she whispered. "A place where silence lives. Where I could be myself without fear." Then she was gone, vanishing into the desert with the fluid grace that had first caught his attention months ago. Sam watched until even her shadow disappeared among the rocks, then turned to face the approaching vehicles. The convoy pulled into his yard with military precision. Agent Caldwell emerged from the lead car, but he wasn't alone. With him came a woman in a severe gray suit, 2 more federal agents, and a team of men who looked like they'd been hired to dig up his entire property. "Mr. Morrison," Agent Caldwell said, his voice colder than Sam remembered. "This is Agent Victoria Stern from the regional office. We have a federal warrant to search your property." Agent Stern stepped forward, her pale eyes scanning the ranch with calculating efficiency. "Mr. Morrison, I'm sure Agent Caldwell has explained our situation. We have reason to believe you've been harboring a federal fugitive." "I've been ranching," Sam said simply. "Same as always." "We'll see about that." Agent Stern gestured to her team. "I want this place searched from top to bottom. Check every building, every hiding place, every inch of ground. If she's been here, I want proof." The next 4 hours were the longest of Sam's life. He watched as strangers tore apart his home, his barn, his life. They found the planted evidence exactly as he'd hoped. The torn fabric near the water trough, the hair ribbon caught on a fence post, the bracelet buried in the soft earth of the vegetable garden. "She was here," Agent Stern said, holding up the bracelet. "Recently. That could have been dropped by anyone," Sam said, though his heart was pounding. "Apache beadwork," Agent Stern replied. "Very specific pattern. This belonged to Aiyana Begney." One of the search team called out from behind the barn. "Found footprints here. Small, bare feet, leading off toward the desert." Agent Stern studied the tracks, her expression grimly satisfied. "She's been living here. The question is, where did she go?" Sam shrugged. "Desert's a big place, full of places to hide, if you know how." "We'll find her," Agent Stern said. "And when we do, you'll be charged as an accessory." "I'm not worried about that." Agent Stern studied his face for a long moment. "You should be. The federal government has a long memory, Mr. Morrison. We don't forget those who interfere with our work." As the convoy prepared to leave, Sam noticed they were positioning one vehicle at the end of his road, a permanent watch post. They weren't giving up. They were settling in for a siege. That night, after the immediate search team had left, Sam sat on his porch and watched the distant lights of the surveillance post. The desert stretched endlessly around him, holding its secrets, protecting its own. Somewhere out there, Aiyana was safe. Somewhere out there, she was free to be herself, to speak her grandmother's language, to remember the old stories. It wasn't the life either of them had planned, but it was the life they'd chosen. Around midnight, he heard it, a sound so soft he almost missed it. The call of a night bird, repeated 3 times. It wasn't quite right, wasn't quite natural, but it was close enough to fool anyone who wasn't listening for it. Sam smiled into the darkness. The desert had indeed provided for her, just as her grandmother had promised. And in providing for her, it had provided for him, to given him purpose, given him family, given him the chance to be the man he'd always hoped to be. The silence around him was complete now, but it no longer felt empty. It felt full of possibility, full of hope, full of the knowledge that sometimes the most profound connections are forged not in words, but in the quiet spaces between them. In the distance, a coyote howled, and Sam heard it, as he always did, now not as a lonely sound, but as a call to others of its kind, a reminder that even in the vast emptiness of the desert, no one had to be truly alone. He'd built her a place where silence lived, and in return, she'd filled his silence with meaning. It was enough. The story of Sam and Aiyana shows us that family, isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about choosing to stand with someone when the world is against them. If this tale of unlikely friendship and quiet courage touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with someone who believes in the power of human connection. What did you think of Sam's choice to protect Aiyana? Let us know in the comments below. We read every single one. Until next time, remember that sometimes the most powerful acts of love happen in the spaces between words. The end.